Okay, welcome back. We're talking about the terms used for relationships, and degree is the term that describes how many things are connected. So in this particular case, an employee and a skill has a degree of 2, and here's a client, an architect, and a project, which has a degree of 3. Hey, by the way, what do you think is the most common degree in relationships? What do you think? Yeah, it's 2. 2 is extraordinarily common. Hey, can you have a degree of 1? Can you have a relationship with yourself? Yeah, coming up soon, we're going to be talking about a recursive relationship. Okay. So in here, there's some terms that kind of help you describe this relationship. An employee has a skill. So has a is a common way of describing it. Or assigned to, or something like that, some sort of verb. That's an easy way of describing it. All right, the next one on page 223 is called cardinality. Okay, so degree and cardinality, yes, you're gonna have to know these two terms. What is degree and what is cardinality? So cardinality is how many, not how many tables are involved, but how many rows are involved, okay? One employee has one and only one badge. A badge has assigned to only one and only one employee. An employee may have one or more computers, okay? But a computer is, so this is like a one-to-many. But a computer only has one employee. So I can have a laptop and a desktop, but both of those belong to only me. None of them are being shared. And then here, this is a many-to-many. So when I describe a one-to-one, one-to-many, or many-to-many, I'm describing cardinality. Now there's 2 parts to cardinality, but let's just forget that for just a minute. What we're describing here is what's called maximum cardinality. Okay, kind of sort of making sense. So one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. And this is not tough, I don't think, to wrap your head around. It's just using some unusual languages. So one more time. A one-to-one, one row in the left table matches exactly one row in the right table. In the next one row in the left table could match multiple rows in the right table. And the last one is a many-to-many, where many employees on the left can have many skills on the right, and many skills on the right can have many employees on the left. Okay. By the way, just a trivial pursuit, once we get out of the modeling business and back into doing stuff in SQL Server does not support a many-to-many relationship. And we're going to have to use something called an intersection table to make it work. Okay. Later on, we're going to start talking about minimum cardinality. And minimum cardinality says, must they match? Okay? This is how many they could match, but maybe I say, it's completely optional. Maybe you don't have to have a badge, or maybe you do have to have a badge. So optional and mandatory is another type of cardinality. So in the world of degree, there's only one of them. In the world of cardinality, there's 2 major types. Maximum cardinality, there's 3 choices. Minimum cardinality, there's 2 choices. That's mandatory or optional. Okay, so making sense? Okay, so maximum cardinality has one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many, and minimum cardinality has, optional or mandatory. And those get combined together. That's why there's not 3 separate terms. There's only 2, degree and cardinality. Okay. So, you think topics like cardinality are going to show up on the quiz? What do you think? Yeah, okay. So, the term parent and child works really cool when you have a one-to-many, okay? Because let's do employee and department, okay? A single department can have multiple employees, okay? So, you could say that the department is the parent, and the employees are the children. I mean, that's a stretch, but it's easy to understand, right? So a department has many things. That's a one-to-many. Okay, got it? Okay, good. All right, one-to-many relationship. However, that term doesn't really make any sense when it's a one-to-one. Like, an employee has only one badge, and a badge is worn by only one employee. There's no, which one is the parent and which one is the child? I don't know. And then when you have a many-to-many, that just makes things more complicated. So this parent and child thing works really well when you have a one-to-many. Okay, good. So in Figure 5.5, they use this kind of a strange term, these little diamond things. I don't particularly like that, so I'm going to skip over that, and we're going to move to this technique, is how they do the minimum cardinality. So in this particular case, this little thing here says this is mandatory. So an employee must have a badge, and a badge must be assigned to an employee. Okay. Here's an optional and optional. Employee might have a computer, more than one, but he's not required. And a computer could be sitting on the shelf with being assigned to no one. So optional and optional. And here, an employee must have a skill, at least one, otherwise why'd you hire them? But there could be a skill on the list which currently has no employee. I mean, that guy left and we don't have anybody who knows how to do that. Okay, that can happen. So this is kind of the notation we're going to be learning for the minimum cardinality rules. Okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called a crow's foot notation, not this diamond notation. So here's the same thing. Here is converting the diamond notation over to the crow's foot notation, and this is the only one that we're going to use. So here we go. One apartment could have multiple employees. That makes sense. Now, how do you read the minimum? This is kind of sort of important. When reading the minimum, the way the maximum is easy. So this little line means one, and this little thing, this little crow's foot thing over here means many. That makes sense, right? This almost looks like a one. That almost looks like a many. I'll give them that. The problem is the minimum cardinality uses the exact same symbol as the one. Okay, that part is a little confusing. So let me just stick with what I'm talking about now. To read this, you have to read it from left to right or right to left, depending on what you're trying to do. So a department must have at least one employee. So when you're reading it from the left to the right, I'm using the right one's minimum cardinality. An employee may be assigned to a department. So I'm reading it, in this case, I'm reading it right to left, so the left one is the one that I'm looking at. Okay. If I was doing this in a face-to-face course, I'd walk up to the board and I'd say, okay, facing this way, you read it this way. And then I'd walk over and say, okay, facing it that way, you read it this way. I can't do that here, but nevertheless, so it's the far one, okay? That's the way I remember it. A department must have an employee, the far one. An employee may have a department, that's the far one. Okay, good. Okay. So reading left to right or right to left, just something you need to learn. So let's go back to this thing here. So here's a one-to-many. Is there anything in here that tells me, is there like a default setting for the minimum cardinality rules? If all you told me is that one employee could have more than one computer, is there some default setting? Like, does this imply mandatory or optional? No. There's nothing in here that tells me this is mandatory or optional. Okay, just saying. All right, good. So there's no minimum that's implied when you see a notation like that. So this is the thing we're going to use. All right. Now, this is not all perfect, because you can imagine a scenario where the minimum and maximum cardinality just flat don't work. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're doing a sports team, and you need exactly 4 players on the team. So one team has exactly 4, not 3, not 5, exactly 4. Well, so basically you would go in here and you'd say, well, it's a mandatory mini, but you just write a little number above saying 4, because there's no real notation that would tell you what the maximum number of. I know it sounds weird because I just said maximum cardinality is many, but that's not really a maximum, is it? So I'm using the term maximum in two different contexts. One from a cardinality, meaning many, and then again a second time to say exactly how many I want. Anyway, so it doesn't exactly work exactly right. Okay, so on page 219, they start talking about, again, the entity relationship diagram. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do this, but let me just pop on over and show you the sample of the crow's foot notation. So again, they're using both symbols. Now, in this case, this looks like it's being attached to an object on the right-hand side. Okay, just bear with me. So the one closest to the object is the one or the many. So that's a one, that's a many, that's a one, that's a many. And the one on the outside, using the exact same symbol, I don't know why they couldn't come up with a better symbol. This is this is mandatory, mandatory, optional, optional. Okay? So there's two ways you could say it in words like, mandatory one, or from a numeric point of view, because some people just like numbers better. This is exactly one. This is 0 or more. I'm sorry, 1 or more. 0 or more, or 0. I said it wrong. 0 or 1, and 0 or more. So it doesn't matter which way you say it in your mind. Whatever makes more sense to you. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to launch the Visio, and we're going to do one. All right, so here we go. I'm going to go here. I have it on my start menu, but if you don't, that's okay. Launch this guy. Let's do it with a template. So I'm going to get templates and go down here, and there's one down here for, network and flowcharts and software and education. Ooh, here's one called database. I'm going to click on that. And then they have crow's foot notation, also to other things in here, but one of them says crow's foot notation. So using the template, I'm going to do this. And it says, yeah, is that what you want to do? And I said, it's exactly what I do. I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And I'm going to go ahead and save this guy for no particular reason. I'm just going to do a save as. I'm going to call this one, I want to make sure I put it in my real, and I'm going to call this one Chapter 5. Okay, so this is going to be a little difficult to follow, so you might want to just pause the video at any time to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to grab an entity and just drag and drop it onto the design surface. Okay, cool. So I need to be able to zoom in to see what the heck I'm talking about. So maybe I just got to just zoom into this guy. Okay. And so this is not immediately happy. To get to be able to type in here, it takes some finesse. Like I double clicked on that. Let's call this one customer. And so I need some attributes in here. So I'm just going to double click on this. This is going to be like customer ID. And I'm going to go in here and say, first name and last name. Okay, I'm not making this thing very complicated, so I'm just going to stop at that. So I'm going to grab me another entity and drag and drop him onto the form. And I'm going to call this orders. By the way, typically it's order, again, not plural. Okay, order. And so I'm probably going to have like an order ID, maybe. And then I need to have a foreign key that goes back to the customer. So I'm going to go ahead and put the customer ID in here. And then maybe some other attributes. I'm not going to fill them all in. Dang it. Now this is, I do have trouble with this occasionally. And I'm going to call this one order date. Okay, so far so good. So now I want to designate this guy as a foreign key. Now this may not be exactly the same in your version of Visio, but I'm going to right click this guy and say set foreign key. So it looks like this on my older version. If you download the newer version, it'll look slightly different. Okay, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark, so you know how this works.